All right, everybody. Sorry, I was a little bit late. Had to get stuff set up here. And sometimes it takes me a second, but I do believe I'm here. So, let's have it go. Hopefully you like the do. I had my hair cut today, so that was something that was going on in my world. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for some people to get here, and then we can start doing the class. This is a different kind of video, and so we'll do things a little bit differently, and I'm gonna say different quite a few times. Let me move in the middle here. Hey Liz, how are you doing? Hopefully all is well. So let's use these here. Actually got quite a few cards, but I'm going to use my favorite ones. Put these over here for a minute. I am doing great. Just getting everything all set up. How was your weekend? Was it good? And if it wasn't, tell me why. Tell me what was going on. We had kind of a, to be honest, kind of a lame Halloween. Nobody really showed up. I was the only one that dressed up. I was in my birthday suit, and I think that scared some people off. So there's that. But no, really, I think we had 8 kids come by, and that was, so we had it on Saturday, because apparently Halloween was on the October 30th where I'm at. And then on actual Halloween, not a soul, because it was a Sunday. I don't know where I'm at. I guess Sunday is off limits for Halloween. All Hallows Eve and all anyway, it was not but it was, it was okay. It was a lot quieter than we're used to, but that's all right. All right, gonna get people set up here, or gonna get this set up here, so hold on 1 minute. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so while we're getting people here, we're going to start with, here we go. Okay. So I'm going to shuffle this deck right here. This is going to be our deck that we're using. Hopefully we get people showing up. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Chance. This is Angelus Chiron Tarot. That's how you say it if you guys are wondering how to say it. And we're just going to be talking about how the tarot cards work, the different kind of meanings that we can have with the tarot cards, when they're upright, when they're reversed, basically all that good stuff. Okay, and if you guys want to, you can have your own deck and kind of be learning as well. The cards I have are a little bit different. I don't have the traditional Rider-Waite tarot. So if you guys need to, you can look up, kind of what I'm using. I'm using the True Black Tarot right here. And if I find a way I can put them on screen and it's a little easier for you guys to see, maybe I can have the cards just face down and you guys can look at the cards. You won't be seeing me as much though, which, depending on how you feel about me, may be good, may be bad. But let's start here with the suit of wands, okay? Now, with the suit of wands, we're going to start with the ace first. So let me get the ace of wands out of this deck, and then we can go from there. It's going to take me 1 second here. Should have had them organized before I started. Oh. Nope, there's the Ace of Wands right there. All right. So I'm going to point the camera down, and we're going to just be going into a discussion here. If you guys feel like you can donate and you can contribute, I will take readings tonight. I will, and I'll talk about my work process and how I read and all that stuff. But if you guys enjoy the class, please feel free to donate. It would help me to keep going and to keep doing this kind of stuff. So I'm just throwing that out there. Like I said, I'll also be doing readings as well. It's not just going to be me doing the class stuff, but this is going to be something I'm doing here. Instead of doing our, what's going to happen Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll do this, and then we can do some readings for people that are wanting to do more traditional readings. Okay, so with that being said, let me get everything set up here. Okay. And if you guys need to, you can go back and you can listen to this. I will post it as a video after. Okay, so first thing that we're going to have here is we have the Ace of Wands, and I will move this over. There we go. Might be able to hear me a little bit better like this, so move that over, and then let's take the camera here and let's shuffle it down. Let's do that. Let's see what we can do. I'm going to try to get the camera to focus. Come on. All right, so let's do this. I'll have the card face you guys so you can see what we're talking about. And we're always talking, when we're talking about the tarot, we're talking about the symbolic language of the tarot, okay? Okay. All right. So this right here, this is the Ace of Wands, at least in this deck, the True Black Tarot deck, okay? So what are we seeing when we look at the Ace of Wands? Now you guys can feel free to answer if you want to. You don't have to, though. It's kind of like rhetorical questions, but please feel free if you guys have insight. If you guys feel like you have something you want to say, or you feel like you know what it is, please feel free to step up and talk, okay? That's what this is about. It's a learning experience. So the Ace of Wands meaning, upright, we have creation, okay? So when we're talking about the Ace of Wands, it is a card that is very, very powerful. And this is a minor, these are called minor arcanas. That's what these are called here. And the minor arcanas are the wands, the swords, the cups, and the pentacles, okay? And they can be called coins or discs in other decks, or chalices. Cups can be called chalices, but primarily we're going to be talking about cups, swords, wands, and pentacles. Okay, so like I said, upright, we have, and I can actually hold the card up a little bit too so you can see it. Okay. Bear with me, guys, bear with me. There we go. I think that'll be easier for us to see. All right, so when we're talking about the Ace of Wands, if you look at this card here, the Ace of Wands in this card is representing a pen down on the bottom. It's kind of hard to see that, but it's like a fountain pen. So this is like a quill, okay, like a pen. And so when we're talking about this card here, hey Kelly, how are you doing? We're doing a tarot class tonight, and so we're just going to be doing some talking here. Doing some talking, doing some teaching on the tarot and how we can read the tarot. Okay, hold on, I'm going to take a drink here. Oh, hold on 1 second over here. Okay, there we go. I'm sorry if for some reason this is dropping out or this is kind of having an issue here. Hopefully that's not going on for very long, and I'm just getting the camera in the angle here. Okay, so the Ace of Wands, all right? Trying to get the camera to focus. The Ace of Wands is the creation card. It's a willpower card. So if you want to view the wands are like the, they are basically the solar plexus chakra, okay? And the solar plexus chakra is all about willpower. Okay, and again, I'll show you this card. And you can see that it's glowing, kind of. Against the black background, it's glowing. And you can almost see the pen, right around the pen. It's kind of hard to see this part here. But that is actually like writing. That's the thing that it's writing, and it's floating up and it's floating around. Awesome, Kelly. I'm excited to teach. So this will be a good class. So we're just barely beginning. Like I said, Ace of Wands. It's hard to see where it says Ace. But okay. In other decks, the Ace of Wands is going to look different, but primarily speaking, it's just going to be kind of a wand, right? Hey, Lori Sue, how are you doing? Good to touch base with you too. Hopefully everything's going okay. But this one right here, like I said, so upright, creation, willpower, inspiration, and desire, okay? Reversed, lack of energy, lack of passion, or boredom, okay? So depending on how we're reading this card in a reading, if you guys want to read reversals, you can. You do not have to read reversals. There's no wrong or right way to do these readings. But the more kind of information we have, that's going to be what can make us really good readers. If you want to get specifics, to me, that's what we're going to have here. And in my opinion, the more we understand the symbols of the tarot, our intuition grows because of that kind of understanding. For me, when I started doing the tarot, it wasn't something that felt natural at first. But as I went on and I was learning and I was growing my knowledge, right? Watching things on the tarot, watching other people do their readings, eventually I started to be able to pick up other things as well, like psychic messages, or if someone needed energy healing for their back or their neck or something, like if there was certain kinds of issues, I was able to pick up on certain things. And I feel like everybody is capable of doing that. The tarot can be kind of like our quote unquote gateway drug, okay, if you want to think of it that way. But it helps us to establish other psychic abilities. The Ace of Wands right here is a card of inspiration, and that's kind of why I'm talking about this as well. But when we're talking about the tarot, that to me is a really good starting point for understanding the psychic world, because the psychic world is symbolic. The psychic world is intuitive. The psychic connects to us through the subconscious mind, and the subconscious communicates to us through symbols. So that's why knowing these cards and understanding them can help us to have a universal knowledge to try to get something from spirit. And to me, that's a very powerful thing. So again, Ace of Wands upright, creation, willpower, inspiration, and desire. All right. Ace of Cards in reverse, we have lack of energy, lack of passion, and boredom. Okay. So in reverse, view these cards not as a negative, view these cards as an obstacle to overcome. And an obstacle isn't inherently negative, but in order for us to overcome the obstacle, we have to have a new way of thinking, and we have to shift our awareness and our perception. So sometimes it seems negative, but a lot of times the only reason we have obstacles is so that we can learn something new, and so that we can see that we were indeed capable of doing this the whole time. Okay, so not negative, but obstacles when these cards are in reverse. Okay, so let's move on to the Two of Wands. We'll discuss this here. Give me 1 second and let me see what we got here, because we can move on to this. Okay, so as we're looking, let's see if we can find the Two of Wands to come up here really quick. You're going to see me fishing out cards, and I hope that's okay with you guys. In the meantime, please feel free to talk to each other. These cards are very, Very beautiful cards. I love them anyway. To me, they're one of my favorite decks. Or they are my favorite deck, I should say. And we'll talk about Major Arcana. We're not going to get to those tonight. But if you want, if you're like really excited and you can't wait, you can look at the last 2 hours of my last video that I did, and I did some tarot teaching on that as well. And we had a bunch of people commenting and telling us their experience and stuff like that. So if that's something you feel comfortable doing, we can absolutely do that. All right, so I do believe I found the Two of Wands. Absolutely, how the cards denote differently when in different spreads. There's so many ways that we can read these. And like I said, none of them, I don't think any of them is really right or wrong. It just sort of is, right? So give me 1 second here. I'm going to find the Three of Wands. So I just have that one ready. I should have done this beforehand. I was not thinking, guys, so pardon me while I get this going. I'm learning what I can do next time, right? That's okay, Kelly. Like I said, if you can't donate or tip, that's okay. Please still be here, right? Please still be here and be learning. If people can't pay, I completely understand. I still want you guys to learn something, and I still want you guys to be here. But I appreciate you saying that, Kelly. That's very nice. Very nice of you. Okay. We're getting a few of them here. We are getting a few of them. All right. Let's keep looking here. Right, absolutely. Tarot is telling a story as it relates to one's query. Absolutely. Absolutely, and it's something that the narrative is always changing, sort of like how the sitter should be changing. This will be anywhere from, I'm thinking if it's an hour, it could be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. If I can make money doing this, I can make it go a little bit longer. But if it's just going to be kind of like people coming in and them doing their thing, yes, that's the term, reading the cards, absolutely. But if it's just going to be me doing this, you know, and there's not a lot of money coming in, I'll probably just do maybe an hour, hour and a half. If some money's coming in though, then I will go longer, okay? I feel like that's fair to say, but I still want you guys to be here, even if you can't pay, because, yeah. Let me get... I know you guys aren't rushing me, but I just want to get things going. Okay, there's another Wands card. This is probably going to be what we're talking about primarily tonight, is going to be the Wands. And then eventually we can talk about spreads. We can talk about different kinds of ways that we can do readings. But for right now, yeah. That's another Wand card. Yes, feelings and thoughts are all transient. Absolutely. Absolutely. Almost got all the cards, guys. Almost got them all. This one is a little interesting, this deck, because some of the Wand cards look very similar to the Sword cards. And so you just have to pay kind of special attention because these cards do not say what they are on them. So that's the only thing, is that you have to have a little bit more of an understanding. Rider-Waite is a good first tarot deck. There's a lot of good first tarot decks. The deck I'm using is not necessarily that. I just like the symbols, the symbology here. Okay. Alrighty. so close to being there, you guys. There we go. Almost, almost. Yep, there's that one. And I'm thinking that's all of them that I can see. But we'll just read this one and then I can look at the rest of the cards here. Okay, so I've got all these cards spread out here and we're just going to read the one, which is the 2. Okay. That one out. There's 3. Okay. So, one more second, you guys. I'm so sorry. I have to look something up really quick here. Okay, so the two of wands is this. How do you get into intuitive psychic mode? So you're touching on some excellent points this evening. Memorizing isn't always necessary when intuiting, yet it is helpful. Okay, so yes, that's an important thing to remember, in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to say things like my opinion, how I do things, how I work, okay? Because it's always changing. Absolutely, yes, clairaudient and clairsentient. So how would you go into that without having, or basically, how do you tap into that at will? There you go. So exactly like what Lori Sue is saying, so many different ways we can practice. Primarily, the way we can start to practice psychic ability and intuit things is to just be aware of our environment and let ourselves hear things, let ourselves see things. And I know that sounds weird, but the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of times we're on our phones constantly. We're not in the real world. We're trying to escape. We're trying to basically get somewhere else. We're always trying to be in that mentality of like, I can't be here. I have to be somewhere else. I have to be doing something else. And for psychic ability to really come in, we need to do what's called quieting the pond. Okay, if you imagine psychic ability like a pond, when that pond is completely still, if it's a crystal clear pond and it's completely still, you can see down into that pond for a long, long ways because it's completely still. But when we're thinking constantly, the pond has ripples. And when there's ripples in the pond, or if it's raining, okay, you can't see the bottom of the pond anymore. You can't see that. Meditation's good too. Yeah, visualization exercises are good. Absolutely. Primarily, one of the best ways, in my opinion, just be present with ourselves. If we can be present with ourselves and have a relaxed mind, I've always said it like this. We're basically allowing the artist, which is the psychic or intuitive ability or the mediumship, the spiritual experience, we're allowing that artistic sense to come in and paint on the canvas. All we're doing is making a blank canvas, and then spirit or our psychic ability is putting pictures on that canvas, or they're doing something with the canvas to make it so we can see it. But it's always kind of prepping the canvas. Very true. Meditation means different things to different people. It is helpful, but your own method of meditation is ultimately what works best. Absolutely, and the only way you can find your own method of meditation is to try a bunch of different things. The shotgun approach, if you want to call it something like that. You try a bunch of different things and see what you like. So right now, Kelly, and anyone else that's watching this, if you're in that experimental stage with your psychic ability, this is going to be where you can grow. Oh, thank you, Kelly. I am Earth energy. 100%. I am a Sun Taurus, Virgo rising and Aquarius moon. There's positive and negatives to all the signs. There's, to all the different ways that people can do this. There you go. That's good too. Absolutely. Anything that you feel like you can, I do say to be in your body, right? That helps with psychic ability. But when we're talking about meditation, we're not talking about necessarily being in the body. If we're talking about meditation, it can even be dancing. It can be anything that kind of puts us into a state where the mundane reality has kind of left us, right? Where we can focus on other things, and because we have that. Hey Amber, how are you doing? But that's primarily, and another way that you can practice is, there's a few different ways that we can do this. And maybe some of them might be a little strange sounding. But we can try intuiting into our own kind of abilities, our own psychic abilities, by simple things, right? One of the things could be, let's say we type in, and this may sound kind of weird, and I know it may sound weird, bear with me. Let's say that we type in obituaries for people. Okay, this is a mediumship exercise. But let's say that we type in an obituary for a person, and all we let ourselves see is just the picture of the person who has passed. Our job is to look at the energy of this picture, right? Because there is energy there. To look at the energy of this picture and to try and intuit what this person died from, or how old this person was, or maybe something that happened in the past that possibly is mentioned in the newspaper article. It's kind of like you can use that as a base, because that information isn't going to be changing. That information is going to be static information, and you can make notes when you're doing your mediumship, and you can practice that over and over again. Another thing you can do, tarot cards. Okay, we just talked about this. Have a tarot deck in front of you. Okay, pull out three or four of your favorite cards. Okay, lay them down in front of you, and then have yourself kind of blindfolded. Have something on, or a mind fold. If you guys look that up on Amazon, it's called a mind fold. And you put it on, and then you can't see anything, right? Like even your peripheral vision is blocked off. I mean, it's pretty damn near impossible to see anything. But have those cards in front of you. Pick one card up and allow yourself to build the energy in your hand, and then get yourself that, right? Get yourself the energy, and then say what it is. And then when you get closer and closer to being right each time, you know you're starting to progress. That's another way you can do it. You can also do partner exercises where you visualize a shape like a square, a triangle, a hexagon, or you can do partner exercises where it's colors, partner exercises where you're imagining a number. But start out very slow, okay? And start out with easy kind of things at first, like it's a circle, it's a square. Don't be doing some trapezoidal stuff. Don't be doing anything like that. At first, let yourself kind of build up these kinds of skills, because it takes time, and it takes a lot, not in effort, but it takes a lot in learning how to let go and learning how to let information come in that is not our own mind. And so let yourself be in that process. Awesome, Liz. Awesome. Perfect. Tell me how it goes. But I'm going to say this. Do not be disappointed if you're doing it and you're getting it wrong. The best thing that can happen is that we're getting it wrong at first, and then eventually we're getting it more right. But understand that as we're learning, if we get something wrong, it's just us learning. Okay, the stakes aren't high. This isn't a life or death thing, and we can learn to improve these abilities, but we have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be gentle with ourselves. When we're hard on ourselves, we're blocking off the psychic ability, because psychic ability is about trust and being vulnerable in the process. And what that means is you're open. You're open to information, and when you're hard on yourself, you're closing yourself off from information. You're closing yourself off from source. So we have to remain open. Okay. Is this all making sense so far, guys? Okay. So got these cards here. So this one right here, this is the Two of Wands. Okay. You'll notice there's a world, and then there's another kind of little thing up above it. When you say worked with clouds, do you mean, because I remember hearing about doing stuff called orbing, where you'll send a piece of energy out and you'll like disperse the cloud, you'll make it evaporate or dissolve by doing that, or do you mean something else when you're talking about working with the clouds? Because that's more of like the divine masculine psychic ability, which we've talked about before on the channel. But this is something too I'll also mention. Okay, this is something too that I'll mention where, and then we'll get back into the cards. Because all of this leads to other things. All of this leads to the other things. Okay, so Lori Sue, awesome. Yeah, so you take a psi ball or energy, and then you focus on a point, and then it goes into the clouds and it can disperse, or it can do that. And people, some psychics, or some people that have practiced in this on a very, very stormy day, like it's really dark, it's really gloomy outside, they can make huge things of light coming through those clouds, those really dense clouds, because they've been able to learn how to harness their energy and how to make the clouds part. It's interesting stuff. It's really interesting. And aerokinesis is somewhat similar, but it's more of a constant flow in the way that it's like a dance. We're not talking about that though. We're talking about this. So I get carried away. But yeah. Right. It is working in conjunction with the energy of the planet, with universal permission. Absolutely. And the same goes for when we're using aerokinesis or taking control of the wind. And I say taking control because the wind is our dance partner. And when you have a dance partner, if you step on their toes all the time, or you try to rule over them, or you try to force them to do something, it's going to be an awkward dance. Likewise, you're taking the reins from the wind for a little bit, and you're having this kind of dance with the wind, or with whatever element it is that you're trying to work with. But wind is kind of an energy that it wants to give and take something. And it wants to have that kind of... Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on the channel too, Lori Sue. Thank you so much. Good vibes, good energy, right? I've had a lot of time to study this kind of stuff, and so if I can share my knowledge, if people can understand it, right? That's going to be where it's at. But yeah, an aerokinesis, when we're talking about the wind, it corresponds to the heart space too. So if we're ever wanting to be in a place where we can kind of manipulate the wind, we can kind of move with it. And the reason I'm doing this is because that's kind of what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about moving the wind, it's not jagged movements. It's not jaggedness. There's no jaggedness. The wind blows and it dies down and it picks up and it blows. And the wind is an interesting thing, because when we're inside our houses, the only way that we know the wind is blowing, unless it's really, really stormy, is when we see a tree move, or when we see the plants sway back and forth, or when we see, stuff like that. And so wind has this kind of way of being absolutely silent and subtle, but also being so, so powerful that it's incredibly scary, right? Nature can be intimidating, but in such a beautiful way, if that makes sense. Anyway, so I'll just say this part. When we're talking about controlling the wind, we're talking about aerokinesis, divine masculine ability. We're talking about objective psychic ability, okay? And when we're talking about objective, yes, a flow of give and take, ebbing and waning. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's how the wind is. If you try to overtake the wind, it's not going to listen to you. The wind doesn't want a master. It wants someone that cooperates with it. It doesn't need a master, right? It does its own thing, and it doesn't need us to do it for it. But it wants to share its dance. It wants to share the dance with other people, and it wants to give them the ability to dance with it. And in so doing, we get control from there. But we have to have an open heart when we do this. And I know that sounds kind of out there, but if our heart space is open when we're talking about taking control of the wind or aerokinesis, then we can allow things to move through us. And an open heart means that we're not holding any tension. We don't necessarily have to be happy, but we need to be open and receptive. And we don't need to be holding anger. We don't need to be holding resentment. We need to be open and we need to be calm. Yes, exactly. Mutually cooperating. Absolutely. So again, that's objective. That's objective. Telekinesis is also objective. And there's other forms of people that can use these kinds of abilities in different ways. There's a myriad of ways that you can use this because, as I've talked about on the channel before, I call these soul expressions. And each person's soul expression is going to be like a fingerprint, like a psychic fingerprint. And so when we're talking about that, each person is different. You could have 5 psychics in a room and each one of them is going to have a different process. They may all use clairvoyant, abilities, but each one of them is going to have a different way that they get information, a different way that they see things. And also, the way that we interpret information, and this is pretty important, so hear me out on this part. Whatever our hobbies or interests are, that's going to be the way that psychic or spiritual or spirits will speak to us, because we're already interested in something and they know that they can communicate through symbols and through that kind of language. So some psychics will be able to bring through some spirits because there could be some mutual kind of hobbies that they had when they were alive. There could be something that the psychic or the medium understands that maybe someone else wouldn't, right? And one of the examples that I have here when we're talking about abilities coming into psychic readings is we have a psychic by the name, or we have a medium by the name of Albert Best, okay? His last name was Best. I mean, that's pretty damn awesome. And he was actually pretty good, so it kind of fits, right? Mr. Best. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Okay, anyway. So his name was Albert Best, and he was a postmaster general. He was a postmaster for like 25, 30 years of his life. And then he started to do mediumship full time. But what he was able to do was when he would bring through a spirit, he was able to give addresses. He was able to tell you where the spirit lived, in what state, the zip code, all of that kind of stuff, because he worked with the mail system and he understood addresses very well, and it was part of his job, part of his interest. And so he was able to give accurate, detailed information, and he was even able to point out where people were living next to each other. Okay, and this was way back when, before Facebook was ever a thing. He was able to say, you live at this address, this person lives here, but your families were together, and this was how they interacted with each other. And so he was able to bring through some incredibly detailed, accurate information, but it's because he had an interest in something. Okay, yes, well stated. We all come with a passive evolution, past lives, if you will, unique unto each of us, which presents its own gifts. Absolutely. And so, and there's a lot of us, and I've talked about this on the channel too, and maybe this is something you guys feel strongly about, maybe you don't. For me personally, this is what I've experienced, what I've felt in my own kind of life. I feel like people that are more neurodivergent, so not typical people, like maybe we have autism or maybe we have something like that. I personally feel like I'm on the spectrum in a lot of ways, but because of that sensitivity, it's helped make me more of a spiritually minded person. That there's a lot of challenges with that, but it's helped to make me more in tune. And I feel like that's kind of the Earth's evolutionary system, is to produce psychics. And how do you produce psychics? You make them more and more sensitive to the outer world, so that way they can cultivate a healthy inner world. Hopefully the environment allows them to do that, because I do believe that's the next wave of psychics, is people that are profoundly sensitive, and they're going to have these incredible abilities, right? Okay. I always have thought that if the material world, or if the animal kingdom evolved over time, why wouldn't the spiritual world evolve over time too, right? And that's what I'm thinking is going on now. We have these indigo children, or crystal, whatever you want to call them, okay, whatever you want to call them. I don't feel like the name is nearly as important as the ability and the expression of empathy that these people can have when they come into the world, okay? So this is something we can I'm glad you're agreeing, Lori. I'm glad you're agreeing. I'm glad this is making sense. Let me see something here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take another drink here. We'll do some more talking. And please remember to like and subscribe the video, you guys, and so I can know that you guys enjoy this kind of content, and we can keep doing this kind of content, okay? All right, so Two of Wands here, like we were talking about. Two of Wands is essentially it's choice, right? Any of the twos in any of the major arcana, or minor arcana, I'm sorry. So any of the twos in the swords, wands, pentacles, or cups are going to be kind of like choices. So what would a wand choice look like? It could look like picking careers. It could look like maybe there's two hobbies that you've had and now you feel like you only have time for one. Like you need to make a choice. So it's like you have left, you have right, okay? And so that's kind of how the two represents itself in the tarot. But with this card, it is talking about choice. So that's something that we can focus on, okay? If it's reversed, then we're looking at the inability to not make a decision, or we're looking at maybe something will be made for us. You are a refreshing, insightful young man, so good to touch base once again, but I need to bid you farewell. Until the next time, thank you as well, Liz. Awesome, Lori, thank you. Have a good evening, and you're very sweet to say that. I appreciate that. Have a good one, okay? All right, so yeah, the two is all about choice, and actually I'll show you the card here so we can see that. Do this. Let's go down. There we go. All right. The Two of Wands right here, okay? The way I kind of see it, we have it where we have the left side here, and then we have the right side, okay? And then right in between, we have the world. And right up above that, we have what looks like, you could say it's the moon, it's the sun. And then right above that, there's like a little bug, okay? And the way you could read this card, because we can read a lot into this, is the Two of Wands is sort of like we get to decide where we want to sort of harvest, if you want to look at it like that. We get to decide the choice that we make in order to have the decisions that come about. So it's a good card to have because to me it's saying that there's choice. There's something we can do, there's this, there's that. And that's always something good when humans have choice, when we have free will, we tend to do our best. If we're confined to one decision, we tend to not do as well. So that's something that we can talk about here. So now, the Two of Wands can mean planning, making decisions, and sometimes we can be talking about possibly moving to a new location. Sometimes. I generally read this card because it's a wand card. I generally read it without the physical connotation because I feel like that's more of a pentacle thing for me personally. But if you guys feel something when you look at this card and it makes you think of something, go with that. Don't sit there and think the way I read cards is the right way to read cards. It's about interpretation, and it's how you learn to interpret. There's not a wrong way to do it. There's just varying degrees that you can do it, right? So don't limit yourself to thinking that what I'm saying is correct. No, it's just a perspective, okay? Kind of like guidelines, but not something that you should stick rigidly to. It's like you get to learn your own stuff as you go along, and you get to learn what you feel comfortable with, okay? All right. So reversed, like we were talking about. So if we could have fear of change, and we could also have, we could also be someone who could be playing it safe, or we could be someone who is not very good at planning. But the fear of change to me is something that I do feel is kind of like, kind of pretty common, which is interesting because I've always said the fear of success or the fear of failure is really just the fear of change, or it's the fear of not thinking that we can adapt to what's to come, okay? And the fear of success is a very real fear because it's kind of like thinking, if I do something really well and I'm really good at it, how can I keep that? Okay. Good night, everyone. It's 10:45 here. I'm sleepy. I'll rewatch. Thank you so much, Chance. The fact that you're teaching this is amazing. Thank you. You are very welcome, Kelly. You're very, very welcome. Have a good evening. Sleep well, my friend. And yeah, go back and watch when you're ready, okay? But sleep good. All right, so like I said, bad planning, and I also feel like Spirit is saying possibly we could be having habits that are not leading us to the kind of better good. I could almost look at this card and see it like there's a lot of energy. If it's reversed, there's a lot of energy that could be coming around here, and there could almost be insomnia around this as well. It's kind of like being stressed out about making choices. Okay, maybe we're a very indecisive person, and so the Two of Wands card keeps coming up over and over again. Until we've learned to work through the energy, it could be coming up in reverse. But once we've learned what that looks like to work through the energy, then yeah, I'm doing readings as well, Amber. I am going to be doing readings as well. Just talking about the cards here. So yeah, if you want to do a reading, we can. I'm just going to be focusing on this until, we establish what we're doing. Hold on here. Let me take a drink. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the Three of Wands, and I'll show you this card. Okay. Now this is an interesting looking card, but we're going to go here and we're going to look up and down. So you'll see there are birds going into the water, and there's fish. It's kind of hard to see, but there's these basically literal goldfish right here, and then there's these birds diving, and this is the Three of Wands. It's hard to see the little three at the bottom, but it is. And what I always see the Three of Wands is it's kind of like a cooperation card. That's going to be one of the things. Oh, that's very nice, Kelly. Very sweet. There's going to be one of those things that's going to be, let's see here. I always see it as a community card, okay? I see the Three of Wands as a community card, possibly coming together and working through something, or a hobby, or an interest, or having someone have a shared interest or a hobby, okay? And the reason I keep saying hobby is because when we're talking about, and it could be a career too, having someone who has the same interest in career, or having someone you meet in college that is a passionate person, not necessarily a love interest, but someone who brings a sense of community, that can be something too. Now also, the Three of Wands is an expanding card. It's a card that wants to keep kind of growing, okay? You could see the Three of Wands almost like the Big Bang kind of in effect, where it starts out and then it keeps growing and it keeps expanding. The three here is a very, very powerful card when it comes to attracting things, when it comes to focusing on bringing things about, okay? And that's something that I think is well, we have expanding, and then we have possibly growing very quickly in whatever it is that we're trying to do. So we could have something that we're interested in, and it is taking off like faster than we thought it would. So this could literally be something like we start, maybe we're selling like leather wallets, right? And word gets out that we're doing that, and all of a sudden we have 500 orders. So it's a good problem to have, stressful nonetheless, but there can be some good problems here to have. And so that's a really good one to have, right? Now, if it's in reverse, so if we have this card here, the way I have it now, it's in reverse to you guys, so I'll just leave it in reverse. I need to change it so you guys can see it. But let's do this here. Okay. So what we have here is, if it's in reverse, it could be, and in my opinion, all of this is obstacles, but primarily it could be that we have obstacles. We're feeling like things aren't going our way. We're feeling like things could just be going just a little bit better, okay? Obstacles are not there to slow us down indefinitely. Obstacles are there for us to see that there's a new way of thinking to handle a problem, and possibly the universe is giving us a sneak peek as to skills that we might need to learn moving forward. So obstacles aren't necessarily negative. They are just that. They are just obstacles. Would you get mad if you were running and there was a fence in front of you? No, you would just kind of go around the side of it, or you would try to focus on how to get around it. We don't get angry at those kinds of things, right? It's that kind of a mentality where it's just an obstacle. It's just something that we can get over. It's something that we can focus on. It's something we can, like I said, get a little sneak peek at possibly what's to come later on in our life. So let's focus on those kinds of issues that we can focus on here. This can mean, when it's in reverse, it can mean that things are, again, not going our way. There could be like a lack of enthusiasm. There can be frustration, and there can be something that maybe we were looking forward to something and it is delayed. It is something that is no longer going to happen. It is something that is going to be on the back burner now. Okay, so this could be a card that things just aren't working the way we want them to work. It does not mean that it's not working. It just means it's not working the way we're thinking that we want it to work. Okay, so not a bad card to have. And okay, so Amber, if you are still here and you're wanting to ask a question, we can totally take some questions now if you're wanting to do that. And then I'm gonna go over the process of how I'm reading the cards, and I'll just remember we're on the Three of Wands, and then when I'm done with your questions or question, then I'll just go back to doing these readings or these cards here. So you let me know, okay? If you're still, hopefully you're still here. Okay. Now, okay, so while I'm waiting to see if our friend Amber is still here. She's been supporting the channel for such a long time. But while we're waiting, we can talk about the Four of Wands. Okay. So, again, we're talking about the element of fire, okay? And the Four of Wands is a pretty interesting card because I always view it as a foundational card, okay? And it can also be, I kind of do this a lot. There's some cards, for me personally, when I read them, I almost see them as like sister cards to each other. And what I mean by that is that there's certain cards that I just always see, like I can read the Three of Wands and the Four of Wands to me have very, very similar energy, right? And unless it's a very specific thing, I do read them very, very similar. So let's find the four. Okay. So here's the Four of Wands in this deck. All right, and it's a bird, and we have four kind of like fledgling trees behind it. And you'll see the bird is kind of, it's not tied to the tree, but it has something in its talons. It's kind of hard to see. It's actually pretty hard to see. But he has a little something in his talons, and he's holding something up, and he's holding the two trees together. And the bird, when I see this bird, it reminds me of a phoenix. And again, this is kind of like a reaping what we sow, but in a positive way. Okay, so let me see here, Amber. Okay, so Amber, I think you're still a member of my Patreon. Would you want to do $7 for that question, and then we can go from there? Because we can do that. I just want you to have that rate, that new rate, because it's not 10 for you. Okay. And I'm glad you like that I'm doing this. Just trying a little something different here. So we also have the Four of Wands can be a community card, and I know I read the Three of Wands as also being a community card, but to me I see three like cooperation. Okay, four is more like maybe a bunch of people that are like-minded, where three could be more maybe a couple people that are like-minded. So this is kind of like we could find a community, we could find people that really understand us. And then we have the let's see here. This can be a card where we're talking about, so I said community, but we could also be having, we can have community, we can have, maybe we're moving into a new house, or maybe we found something for us that's like perfect, like a living arrangement. Okay. Thank you, Amber. You're very kind. Thank you. Let me see here. Okay. Thank you, Amber. That's awesome. Okay. All right, so let's look at your question here, and I'll remember we're on the Four of Wands, and then we'll talk more about that here in just a second. So I'm going to put these cards off to the side, and then we're going to be focusing on Amber's question here. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do it like this, and so you guys can see the cards. And like I said, I'm going to be doing what's called showing my work. Okay, I'm going to be reading the cards and telling you what I'm getting. There will be times, sometimes I have psychic inspiration come up where something just resonates with me, and you guys probably won't see that. Some of you might. But during that time, know that that's normal, and know that your psychic abilities can grow as you get more comfortable with doing readings or with doing anything like this. It's about feeling comfortable, and it's about feeling that kind of sense of releasing ourselves and allowing ourselves to be. Because when we're talking about psychic ability, we're usually talking about the expression of it, okay? And how do we do something? How do we express something? We have to be calm, we have to be relaxed, and we have to be kind of like gently focused, okay? Because if we try to force something, it does not happen, especially with psychic ability. We're just stressing ourselves out, we're stressing our body out. So we need to be as calm and as relaxed as possible to do these kinds of things. So let's see what we get for Amber here. So she's wondering about the physical connection. Everything else is going good, but there's a possible miss with the physical connection. And so we're going to see kind of what's blocking that and go from there. So let's see. And thank you, Amber, for coming on and always being someone who, I feel like you're just talking about stuff and you let me do this and you let me show other people kind of what I'm doing. And I appreciate that because I just feel like you're a very open person, and I love people that are open people. Awesome, Denise. Well, stick around. We're gonna do Amber's question here, and then we'll go right back into reading the cards. But thank you for stopping by. I love this. Okay, so let's see what we got for Amber. So I shuffle the cards here, guys. I shuffle the cards until I feel like it's time to stop. What does it feel like when it's time to stop? I just stop. I stop, and I feel like that's when I go. Sometimes there can be a feeling or a pull or a tug, and sometimes even cards will fall out, and that will be your kind of cue to start reading. But for me, I just stop when I feel like it's time for me to stop, and as you get more comfortable with the cards, you'll have that sense come up too. Don't think that you should have all this figured out right away. Let yourself experiment with it. Let yourself, be gentle with yourself. Watch how other people do it, and just learn through that, okay? Because this isn't a race. None of it's a race. All right, so let's see what we get here. So what's blocking the physical connection here with the person that Amber is currently with? Oh, look at that, the Two of Wands. We were just barely talking about this. I'm seeing this as a reversal. On my end, I'm going to read it as a reversal because that's how it's coming up for me. So we got the Two of Wands in reverse. The Knight of Swords in reverse. Okay, Knight of Swords in reverse. And the Queen of Swords upright. Okay, so let's interpret these cards here. Let me move these over. All right, so we have Two of Wands in reverse right here. Actually, let me show you that. And it looks like chopsticks. It's a hand holding chopsticks. Okay, and so you can view this, and there's a crystal ball in the hand as well. It's kind of hard to see. But we can view this as someone getting ready to pick something in a direction, like they're getting ready to go into a direction. But where it's in reverse, where this is in reverse, it feels like this person is having trouble making choices and sticking to them. I feel like this person's confidence is low because when I see the Two of Wands in reverse, and the other cards, I will explain these other cards here because I'm going to kind of read into these as well. But I'm feeling like there's a sense of low confidence or a sense of this person trying to force something. Not that he doesn't care about you, Amber. I feel like there's a connection here. I do feel like there's a connection, but this person could talk their way out of, or could think their way out of anything. That's what I'm feeling. There's something here where this person feels very shaky when it comes to intimacy because of things that have happened possibly in the past. More than likely it's in the past because this person feels like they just think. And if we're talking about intimacy, if we're talking about letting our guard down, when we're thinking, we're not with the person that we're with. we're putting up a barrier. It's a mental barrier, and it's kind of self-destructive, right? But it is a mental barrier. So we have so we could view the Two of Wands in reverse as a card of stagnation or a card of not being able to make a choice. Okay? So this person, what I'm feeling like is they want to do it. They want to do it. They want to be in that way, but they're feeling like they're just blocked, or they're feeling like they're congested in that way. It feels like it's hard for them to do this. And what's funny is if we're talking about intimacy, you can't have expectations, right? And if this person is thinking that they have to be mind-blowing, or they have to do this, or they have to do that, and they're putting that pressure on themselves constantly, it makes it hard to be in a relationship, because it should just flow. There should be an organic flow to it, and like a dance to it, right? And there shouldn't be something where there's all this pressure that this person's putting on themselves, but that's what I'm feeling here. And the reason why I'm saying that in particular is because we have the Knight of Swords in reverse, okay? The Knight of Swords upright, it's kind of like a thinker, right? It's this, and maybe this person is an air sign, Libra, Aquarius, or Gemini. I'm not sure, but we do have two air sign cards here. So when I see the Knight of Swords in reverse, I think of someone who really, really overthinks. I think of someone, they could be kind, they could be a caring person, but there's someone who really wants to make sure they're doing the right thing, or they're taking the right path, or they're doing this. But in the time that they're trying to think of doing the right thing, or doing this or doing that, life is passing them by, because they're trying to look for possibly the perfect moment, or the perfect time, or the perfect situation. And perfection does not exist. We have the now, and that has to be right for us. But some people feel like there's these expectations. They have to do it. They have to wait until something happens, right? And so it could be that this person is just putting too much pressure on themselves to perform, and that is going to make it so you can't perform. Okay, that's going to make it so that it's very, very difficult for us to, perform. I'll just say it that way. Then we have this card here. This one's upright, however. Okay, this card is the Queen of Swords. So this card can be read in a couple different ways because it's upright. And we could be looking at Amber, what was your sign again? I can't remember. Can't remember what your sign was. Your sun sign, specifically. Just gonna stretch my back here for a second. Both cancers. Okay, so that's good. Both cancers is good, because I think that's why there's a stronger emotional connection. So that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. The Queen of Swords, though, being upright, the reason why I was asking you what sign you were was because when I see this card upright, I'm feeling like this is you. You're the queen in this situation. And the Queen of Swords upright is a good card. He's an engineer and is very cerebral at times. Okay, so he's trying to engineer the perfect scenario. He's trying to do something like that. And that's kind of the issue, is when we're dealing with people, like you said, that are very cerebral, they have a hard time being in the moment. And intimacy is in the moment. It's basically as in the moment as you can be. Hey, Ty, how are you doing, bud? But when we have, hey, Kurt, when we have the Queen of Swords, it's a card that's fair. It's a card that's just. Again, if it's upright, and this one is. And it's a card that can represent like balance. It can be the Libra card. It can also be kind of an Aquarius card as well, but I read it more like a Libra card. And so it means that we're trying to balance things. You're trying to look at things from a balanced perspective, but possibly your patience is you're thinking, maybe you're thinking, does he find me attractive? Like, does he find me sexually attractive? Does he find me physically attractive? What's going on here? And I'll tell you right now that I feel that there's a connection here. I do. I just feel that he gets in his own way. I feel like something is blocking him from connecting with himself and physically grounding himself. I'm almost wondering if because and Amber, you can tell me, does this person have like anxiety? Like a lot of anxiety, or what's going on there? And hi, Kurt, and awesome, Ty, your birthday is tomorrow. Awesome. So November 2nd. That's a good birthday. I mean, all birthdays are good. Oh, Kurt, awesome. Birthday month for you too. Awesome. Turning 22. Oh, there's some power in numbers there. 22 is a good year. Yes, and he has a very high stress job. Okay, so I'm almost wondering, Amber, this is going to sound kind of strange. I feel like maybe, and I'm not saying this is a cure, I'm not saying this is something like anything like that, so please take this the way you want to take it. There needs to be maybe something that helps calm stress or that helps calm the mental chatter, is if we have something like a good diet is going to be primarily the one thing we want to have. But another thing that can help is magnesium and potassium. I know that sounds kind of weird, but if we're talking about people that have to deal with a lot of stress, magnesium and potassium can help us calm down. It helps the arteries calm down, and it helps them like lessen or and that can also be something that's good for other things, intimacy wise. But there needs to be a sense of calm with this person where they can kind of turn something off. And I don't think necessarily that, like, there's anxiety, there's high stress, but I don't think it's all their fault. I think this person could be conditioned over time to just have stress in their life, and they don't necessarily know how to get rid of it. So there needs to be something where, and maybe we can do something too, where intimacy can be something that's further from the mundane. For this person, maybe it could be a getaway, or there could be something like that, but there needs to be something where this person's kind of taken out of their environment in a comfortable way, put into a new environment, and then there's no expectation. There's just kind of like letting things happen and letting things sort of take their course. But I am feeling like there's a block here because this person has kind of put themselves in that way. So it's not that they don't see you as beautiful or attractive. This person just has a hard time, I feel like, expressing themselves in that way. Maybe there could be something where maybe they were made fun of during an intimate moment, or maybe something like that happened. And I'll tell you right now, if that happens, really hard to get over that kind of stuff if you're a guy. So there could be issues that have happened. Have you, Amber, have you talked to him about this? I mean, have you had like a heart to heart with him? Here. Because the one thing, I mean, it's difficult to talk about this stuff with anybody, especially with a guy. But if we come at it from a place of love, no, not yet. Will I scare him off if I talk to him about it? I don't want to offend him. Let's look at that. And Amber, if you guys do have a strong connection, if you're feeling like that's something that you can do, talking about it is going to be something that will hopefully strengthen the connection in the long run, because you're not holding in resentments. Right now, I'm going to draw a card. We're going to see. But right now, if the cards, are saying that it's a good time to talk, it is a good time, because then later on in the relationship, there won't be a resentment. There won't be things that have happened. It's good to address things as they come up. But let's look and see with the cards what we can find out here. So again, I'm shuffling the cards again. And we're just going to be focusing on Amber's question. She doesn't want to offend him. We're still in the getting to know each other phase. So Amber, how many times would you say roughly that you've hung out with this engineer person? How many times would you say you've hung out with them? Hung out? that sounds weird. How many times would you say you've no, I'm gonna stick with hung out because the rest of what I'm gonna say sounds really really prim and proper, and I don't know why I can't think of another word for hanging out, but met up, right? How many times? Nah, that still sounds weird. Let's see. So if Amber brought this up, would he be offended? Performed? No, I don't mean performed, Amber. I mean how many times have you guys been in the same room with each other and had a conversation? Like, I'm wondering, have you guys hung out a lot? I don't mean hung out as in quotation marks hung out. I mean like literally spending time together. Do you guys spend like every day together? Do you guys see each other once a week? Do you guys... That's what I'm talking about. I would word it a little bit differently if I was talking about, you know, the other parts, but yeah. Let's see what we get here. Okay. And guys, if you would not mind, to help support the channel, if you could please like and subscribe. If any of you guys are watching kind of in the shadows, kind of looking around, seeing what's going on, I would appreciate a subscription or a chicken wing. Either one would work, but subscription will do this time. And like the video, please, as well, if you guys would not mind. I would appreciate it. All right, let's see what else we get here. So... we see each other once a week, so about 9 times now, and 1 successful performance. Okay. So that's good. At least there's been 1 successful performance. He's getting to know you and be more comfortable. So we could have someone also, Amber, I want you to think of it like this. There are people called... Let me make sure that I get this right so that you can look it up. But is it this one or is it the other one? Nope, not that one. Give me 1 second here, Amber. We talk casually almost every day, though. That's awesome. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. But I'm trying to look at this. So it is people that... Let's see. All right. For some reason, the word is escaping me, but there is a word that describes this pretty well. So it's not being able to perform, okay? It's not being able to do that until this person knows you very well, okay? And it's a group of people, usually not a group of people. What am I talking about? There are people out there that they can only be intimate once they have known someone for a while. Okay, or once they have gotten to know someone. So they're not someone who just goes about this willy-nilly. They're someone who is kind of like the swan in the situation where they're looking for the forever person. I don't see them as being a player kind of person. Instead, they're looking for someone to stick around with them. So that's something that's really good. So you've hung out, you've been together about 9 times, okay? In the span of things, that's not very long. I'm not trying to be like, wait forever. I'm not trying to say that. But I feel like when this person gets to know you better and they see how you handle them when they're stressed or when they're going through this, depending on how you are and the kind of the kind of feeling of safety or feeling like this person can be themselves around you, that's going to help them to open up more. Okay, I got this card. If you brought up the intimacy thing with this person, I got the Hanged Man card. Okay, and the Hanged Man card is about seeing things from a different perspective. The Hanged Man card isn't in reverse, so it's not like this person is refusing to see things from a different perspective. Instead, it could be that bringing this issue up in a very gentle way could be something that you could talk about. However, Amber, I'm not feeling like now what I'm feeling is I'm not feeling like it's gonna happen. Okay, I'm not feeling like it would be a good time for you to talk about this now. Maybe in another month. I feel like let this kind of grow and bloom. There has been one successful performance, and I understand that we want to have an emotional connection and a physical connection. But if this person needs time to feel more safe or to feel more connected or secure with you, give them that time and let's see how things happen. Okay. And let's see if there's more successful performance that happen. But if we do try to push something, or we try to push expectations, it can make this person get in their head even more. And I do feel like eventually, let's say maybe a month from now, okay, let's say December 1st or even January 1st. I know that's 2 months, but let's say that we're talking about that kind of time frame. This person's getting to know you much better. Stressful times are kind of over. Like when January happens, people, they're not preparing for the holidays. It's nothing like that. Let's look at that too. But stress to me can be a relationship killer. Well, not just to me. It's pretty well known. So let's look at, is he attracted to you? I have a feeling he is, Amber. I do have a pretty strong feeling he is, but let's see what we get here. So we're shuffling the cards again. Gonna answer this question. One more shuffle here. Okay. Okay, so this is what I'm getting here, and I'll read these cards to you. So we have the Two of Coins, and then I'll read that in relation to this. And then we have the Knight of Cups in reverse. So what I feel, Amber, I feel like this person is very attracted to you, but it feels like to me, and maybe you can tell me if this is true or not, I feel like this person could possibly have trouble prioritizing things. And this person, when it comes to dating or relationships, I don't feel like they know exactly how to prioritize. It's good you guys are meeting once a week, but to me, it feels like this person wants a connection. They don't know how to go about it. They're very cerebral orientated. And so it's kind of like when I see the Knight of Cups in reverse, it's someone who wants something. But in an emotional way, they don't know how to get it. You both are water signs. You both are Cancers. And I feel like this person is kind. I feel like this person has that. But this person, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to romantic kinds of things, it feels like there's some obliviousness here. There's definitely attraction. I don't feel like there's a lack of attraction, but I do feel like it's difficult for this person to understand in the same way, if that makes sense. Could I ask, what do I have to know in this present time, and what do I have to prepare for, please? Hi, Kurt. So when I'm done with Amber, if you want, you can donate, and we can do your question there. It's $10 through Cashapp or PayPal. I've got a thing here, and we can look at that for you. But you can see my stuff up here if that's something you want to do, my friend. Okay. So, yeah. That's what I'm seeing, Amber. Awesome. Okay. So the stuff is right here, the contact information, or the where to send the money, and then we can focus on doing a question for you. You'd be the next one in line if you'd want to do that. So Amber, yes, there's attraction. Okay. And I know you probably don't want to ask him, even though I feel like You don't want to ask him because you probably don't want to offend him that way, because he'll be like, yeah, of course. Like, it seems like a weird question. That's kind of the feeling that I get. I feel like this person understands things. You don't want to trouble them. You don't want to ask them these kinds of questions because you're, like you said, you're still getting to know each other. You're still in that phase. I feel pretty strongly there's attraction here. Okay. So I would say at this point in time, give the person the benefit of the doubt. I would say another month to 2 months. Okay. Just because there can be stressors around the holidays. There can be definite stressors around the holidays. And maybe after that time, if you feel like things are winding down a little bit, that might be a good time to talk about things. You know, in a gentle way. I have a feeling you would be gentle. I don't get a feeling that you would try to be rough around the edges, But just talk about things. Let the person know that they're heard, and let them know that their words have value and merit, as long as they're coming from a place of honesty and respect. So that's what I'm seeing here, Amber. Does that help answer your questions? Just waiting here for Amber's response. You're very welcome, Amber. Very, very welcome. Okay, so now I'm just going to put these cards back in here. And if anyone else wants to go, it's $10 a question. I do spend time. You saw how much time I spent with Amber just talking about things. I ask you guys questions. I make sure that you guys feel heard and that this is a safe space for you. I also do private readings as well if you guys want to do that. It wouldn't be tonight, but we would set a time up another time, even tomorrow, if you guys would want to. But we could set a time up and we could talk about things in a more personal way. And we can even do face to face, or we can do on the phone if that's something you guys would want to do. And then I can ask you guys questions easier that way. So that's up to you guys. You can look at my website if you want to book a reading that way. But that's also an option. So give me 1 second, you guys. And I will be right back. So 1 second. All right, everybody. So, let's see here. We were on the Four of Wands, and we'll talk about that one. We will go back to that one here. So, Four of Wands. Coming right up. So we have this one. I'll zoom this out a little bit. There we go. Four of Wands. So we have this phoenix-like figure, and it's hard to see on the camera, but it's holding up these two little, I guess, ropes that are connecting these trees together. And so what we can see is the bird in this, where the quill, right, the feather represented the first wand. The bird the bird has a lot of feathers, and birds represent kind of a dynamic energy. Birds are kind of unpredictable, right? We don't know exactly what birds are going to do. Sometimes they fly into a window. Sometimes they poop on you. We don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that funny parrot videos on YouTube are probably the best thing ever. Anyway, but when we're talking about the Four of Wands, we're talking about community, we're talking about stability, and we're talking about more of kind of like a foundational energy, okay? And it can also be a card that we could use to talk about things that we could celebrate in our life, or things that we could find joyous in our life, okay? So that's kind of this thing that I'm talking about here. It could be a card that comes up to say, hey, buy yourself that thing, you deserve it, you work hard for what you do. It could be that kind of a card where it's like, spoil yourself a little bit, let yourself relax, let yourself experience this kind of energy, because that's going to be something that if we deprive ourselves of pleasure, it does not make us good. It makes us grumpy as hell, okay? So let's work on not doing that. Okay. Now, also, if this card is in reverse, this could be, so let's flip it upside down, okay? Anyway, if this card's in reverse, this is going to be a card that we could be, so where I said there was structure, there was a home, there was something like that, that's one thing. That's one thing. But if it's in reverse, there could be difficulty in the home. There could be difficulty at work. There could be difficulty in a situation where we should feel like we're supported. So that could be something that we're talking about. Again, not a negative card per se, but a card where we could be talking about difficulties, issues, different kinds of issues coming up. So not a bad card, just different, just kind of a different card. And we can be talking about frustration as well, okay? So when we're talking about other things too, it can be a lack of support or a lack of people being supportive, right? Or basically, if people are being assholes, kind of a thing. That's what we could be talking about here. And then there's also something else where we could be just talking about wandering around, feeling like we can't quite fit in, feeling like we can't quite find our place in what it is that we want to do. So this could be a card of wandering and not knowing where we fit in. This could be a card of that never arriving at the destination, never feeling like we're there. That could be the card. We're always looking for ourselves in other people. We're always looking for ourselves in events. We're always looking for ourselves in these things that are outside of us, when really we need to be looking within, okay? And I know that's a hard thing for us to do, depending on how we grew up, depending on different traumas, different things that happened. But that's going to be the key towards understanding these cards and how they relate. But the Ace of Wands is definitely that kind of card where we're talking about, or not the Ace of Wands, the Four of Wands is that kind of card that can either be a very supportive, we're in a community-driven kind of card, or it can be basically the opposite. So a lot of times when I read one card one way, it's kind of like you're reading the opposite of the card when it's in reverse. Again, you guys do not have to read cards in reverse. I understand that there's a lot of meanings. If we read the cards upright and in reverse, and then you have spreads and you have all this stuff, take your time understanding what the cards mean upright first. And then if you want to read reverse, you can, but you do not have to, okay? That's never something you have to do. But it's something you can do to possibly get more information, but it is not required. It's never required for us to do anything in the psychic world. It's always what feels good to us, what feels like it's organic, what feels like it has that flow, okay? So let's look at the next card here. my friends, and let's see what we get. Now I'm open for readings. You guys want to ask a question, $10 a question. I do spend time on those. But during the downtime where we're not doing readings, let's talk about reading the tarot, all right? I don't think that sounds like a terrible idea to me. I'm a bit of a ham, guys, if you didn't know. Okay. So let's talk about this card. This is the Five of Wands, okay? Now you'll notice that in this card, there's not a lot of color. Where's the gold? Where's that kind of shimmery, shiny part? When I see this card, to me, it's not drawing anything to itself. It's not saying, here I am. You know, the other wand cards kind of have this energy of like flaunting, like the peacock, you know, the peacock feather, and the golden feathers actually had similarities to the peacock feather as well. Hard to see on camera. But when we're talking about this is kind of like the wand that, how do I describe this? So this is a card that can deal with possibly people being, it could be people being vindictive towards us, or it could be people being, it can be people being competitive. It can be people looking into that kind of scenario. A lot of times, if I can remember right, I don't have the other cards in front of me. I don't have cards that have traditional, I mean, not traditional people, so I need to get the Rider-Waite deck, but a lot of times the Five of Wands is kind of shown where someone is like in the background and they're kind of scooting away. They're kind of scooting away from things, or they're trying not to do things. And that's usually what this card is in reverse. If this card is in reverse, it could be that we are a bit of a pushover, right? We're a bit of someone who gets taken advantage of. We're someone who is always kind of pushed into corners and we cave pretty easy. And so if this card is in reverse, it can be that we are avoiding conflict at all cost. Instead of facing it, instead of saying, you know what, this is going to be uncomfortable for a second, but I'm going to get through it, we are avoiding conflict and we're allowing ourselves to not get resolution because we always cave and we never stand up for ourselves or set boundaries. This card upright, though, is conflict. It can definitely be conflict. Conflict can mean a bunch of different things, but competition is one, right? We can have a competition, we can have competing interests against different things. We could have a situation where, let's say we're up for a job, and maybe there's someone else that's up for that job too, and maybe we're feeling unconfident, or maybe we're feeling like we can't quite handle it. And so there could be that we feel pressure, and that's a hard thing for us to do. But when we are talking about this card being in reverse, there's also another, because this card upright is conflict. So what's interesting is some of these cards have a kind of a more, I don't want to say negative, but they have more of an obstacle-like reading even when they're upright. So sometimes when they're in reverse, they'll actually read positively or more positively because it was a card that inherently has more of a negative connotation to it. So when this is in reverse, it can mean avoiding conflict, right? Hi, Jadzia Dax, how are you doing? But it can mean avoiding conflict, but it can also mean respecting someone's differences. It literally can be like avoiding conflict for the sake of saying, you know what? I don't want to get into that. And having that be a good thing, right? But it can also be avoiding conflict because we don't want to get in a fight. Is there a free card or similar? Hi, Jadzia. So I'm not doing the free card readings. So I'm just going to say that outright so that you don't have to wait around. Right now, I'm just doing a class and talking about this. If you want to learn about the tarot, we can do that. I do charge for my readings, but yeah, if you want, you can stick around and just hear this or do whatever it is you want to do. Okay, so let's go to the Six of Wands. Hold on one second, guys. Had to take a drink. Okay. So let's do Six of Wands. And the Six of Wands in this deck is, you're very welcome, Jadzia. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so we have Six of Wands right here. This card is, take a look at this one. You have the lion's mane and you have the flags, the banners, and the lion in front of it has kind of an explorer's hat in front of him, and it's kind of on the ground, and the lion is standing in front. So the lion is showing strength over an adversary. It's showing that there's time to celebrate. It's showing that this is a time of success. Okay? So when we're talking about the Six of Wands, it's kind of like a coming home card. It's like a homecoming card. It's like a celebration of the fact that maybe we did the thing that was difficult, or maybe we're getting ready to do it and we're feeling confident. Okay, so it can be that there's a task that has not yet been done, but we're feeling pretty confident, like we're going to be okay. So that can be something that we're talking about here as well. So victory, obviously, is what we're talking about. Success, congratulations, celebration is a really good way to put it. We could also have something to do with maybe the community recognizes our effort, or maybe something goes along those lines. So we could be looking at that kind of scenario where we're being regarded as doing the right thing, and that feels pretty good. So we're being validated. We're feeling like, okay, I can do this. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. Now, this card in reverse, this card is definitely a card that when we see it in reverse, this is a card that is kind of like we could be blinded by our own ambition. We could be someone that could step on other people to get our success, right? Or we could be someone that has an excessive amount of pride, or maybe we're arrogant, or maybe we just feel like we're better than other people. That can be something that we're talking about here. So when this is in reverse, and what's funny is that it's a lion, right? And lions live in prides. But when it's in reverse, it's definitely about that pride. It's about that arrogance, and it's about possibly feeling like we're better than other people. So maybe when people are congratulating us, it's like, yeah, you should congratulate me because I'm awesome. And not in a way that we feel confident, but in a way that we are very kind of egocentric, right? Because having confidence in ourselves, that's not a bad thing. Not at all. Not even a little bit. But being overly confident and maybe putting other people down, or saying other people's viewpoints are stupid or pointless, and not letting other people have their say or talk because we feel like we know everything, that's not good. That's not a good way to be. Okay, so this could also mean, when it's in reverse, that there could be maybe that we feel like we did the right thing, and even though we weren't necessarily looking for accolades or rewards, we really didn't get anything. We didn't get anything, so there could be a lack of recognition. There could be a lack of there could be a, how would you say this? There could be, we feel like we're doing the right thing, but we are not being valued for what it is that we're doing. So the lack of recognition. And sometimes we can see where we're at, because we can look at ourselves and say, you know what? Maybe the thing that I just did, maybe the task that I just accomplished, I did because I wanted to get approval. And that can teach us a lot about our own character. So that's not necessarily a bad thing at all, but it's something that can be kind of a painful lesson for the ego, right? Is if we see that we're doing something just for the ego satisfaction of it. Again, there's nothing wrong with being satisfied with our work, but if we're doing something just for the sake of being congratulated, then maybe we need to look at where our self-esteem is coming from. Maybe we need to look at something we can do to build that up, okay? All right, so we could also be looking at possibly being punished, right? Yes, it can, Venus rising, absolutely. I was just going to say punishment, but it can absolutely mean defeat. So if we're talking about celebration when it's upright, and by the way, hello, Venus rising. Hopefully you're doing well. It can definitely mean defeat when it's in reverse, because upright, it is a card of celebration. So what would be kind of the opposite of celebration? And I'm not saying that the reverse is always the opposite of the card, but it can give us some insight into that, right? So the cards have kind of a dualistic concept. Just like anything else in life, we only learn by comparing hot to cold. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a word for either of those things, because we wouldn't have anything to compare it to. It would just be the way it is. You know, we wouldn't have a way to describe it. But we can say something is cold, and we know that we know what that feels like, and then we know what hot feels like. And so there's a dualistic concept to these cards, obviously. Yes, it can mean defeat. It can also mean something that came into me from Spirit. Could be, if this card is in reverse, we could be talking about a slow kind of poisoning. So we could be looking at maybe sabotaging ourselves, or maybe someone else is kind of coming in and giving us, it almost feels like a slow poison kind of effect, where something is souring our experience. And maybe it could be unseen, but that's kind of what I'm seeing here, because this card upright, we have a lion, and in front of it is an explorer's hat. Okay, that right there, did the lion defeat the explorer? I think so. I think the wild side won out in this situation. If this is in reverse, though, maybe the explorer sneaks up on the lion, and maybe that's kind of what's going on here. So it's kind of like we need to be on the lookout. We don't need to be filled with excessive pride. We can allow ourselves to just be in the moment, right? But that's absolutely what it can mean, is defeat, if it's in reverse. Okay, so let's go to the Seven of Wands here, and let's see what we can get. All right, so I'll move this one over, and then let's do this here. I have the Eight of Wands. I do not have the Seven, so I'm going to dig through my cards here. You're very welcome, Venus Rising. Thank you for stopping by and communicating here. As I'm going through these other cards, if you want to talk, let me know. I love it when people are commenting. So let's find the Seven of Wands, and then we can go from there. Okay, let's see if we can find it first. Kind of the hard part, isn't it? I think that one is the, yeah, that's the Nine of Wands. Okay, found the Nine of Wands, so that's good. This deck is the True Black Tarot, okay, and it does not say what each of the cards suits is, and so you kind of have to go by looking. I'm really interested in your perspective of the Four of Swords. Okay. Let's I can jump a little bit, and we can do that one. Let me get this card here. Let me get the Seven of Wands, and then I'll show you the Four Swords here. And we'll talk about that. Thinking that must be the Seven of Wands. Yeah, that must be the Seven. Okay, so that's the next card we'll talk about, but let's talk about the Four of Swords, because we had someone wanting to talk about that, so let's do that. Four of Swords is kind of like a card that you're very welcome. That's what this is all about, is I want people to come forward and say something so that we can talk about the cards. So let's look here. We will find the Four of Swords. I just want to have a point of reference. So that's why I'm looking through here to find a point of reference. And we'll see if we can find it here. Okay. Four of Swords. That's the Ace. I think we're getting close. There it is. Okay. So here is an interesting card. So from what I know of the Four of Swords, it can be taking a rest, or it can be kind of like calling it here. So here's the Four of Swords. Let's talk about it here. Let's see what we can find out. I'm just going to show you the card here. Okay, so it is a card primarily dealing with rest and relaxation in a way. Right, and you said you know that those cards here. This sword here is an interesting one, because if we're looking at this card here, we see that it is almost, the sword is almost made of a it has a normal handle, but then taped to the handle is a blade. And the blade looks like it's an obsidian blade, okay? So we're taking something that's more natural, and then we're putting it onto something that's more man-made, right? And I'm not saying that, I'm saying that the obsidian arrowhead, or this obsidian kind of material here, this volcanic glass looking kind of material, that's organic, but the tempered steel that it's on is not, okay? So this is showing that There's an amalgamation of two different kind of elements. And then you'll notice that there's this up here as well. You'll see this shining part here. It's basically showing that through this is actually the card upright. Through understanding that we can put our sword down, there can be rest and recovery. And what that means is that we need to understand that sometimes the best thing for us to do is to take a step back. A lot of times, especially in the American way, or what is what, Venus Rising? I'll show you this card again here. Let me take a drink here. Okay, so the gold color circle and flowers. Okay, so you can view that right here. So look at these, look at the knife, and then look at the gold color circle and flowers. That's exactly what it is. It's like the gold underneath is showing a perspective. It's showing kind of a point, right? And the knife isn't cutting through anything. In fact, right where the knife is laying down, there's life that's growing. And the reason why is because it's not being used in an action state. The sword is holding still, okay? Hopefully that makes sense, because we're not talking about, right, just resting. Resting, restoration, calmness can be another thing as well. We could be looking at someone who knows how to negotiate, someone who has diplomacy. It's a mental card. So when we're talking about resting, we're talking about the mind. We're talking about resting from anxiety. Basically, putting up the saddle, putting up something and just resting, allowing ourselves to relax, okay? A lot of times, people run from life. People want to just have the big events, and people do not celebrate the mundane moments in life, but the mundane moments are a huge, large majority of our life, and they should be celebrated. Life should be celebrated. And I feel like this card is saying for us to go back to find that kind of balance. Now, if it's in reverse, you have stress, you have a ton of anxiety, right? This card here, more so than a lot of the other cards, maybe the Nine of Swords is much worse, you know, when it comes to anxiety and insomnia. But this card here is a card that when it's in reverse, it's kind of like the knife is being used against us. We're no longer setting down the blade. Instead, we feel like we always have to hold it. So imagine in this kind of scenario, imagine that your whole life, this knife right here is taped to your left hand, okay? And you can never take it off. And no matter what situation you're in, you're talking to people, you're trying to have a conversation, you're trying to do whatever it is you want to do, you always have this knife taped to you, okay? So people are going to be scared. People are not going to want to talk to you. So you can view this kind of like having this mental energy of this kind of jagged mental energy, this kind of quick mental energy, a stabbing kind of mental energy. People will have a hard time being around you because it will be difficult to have a conversation. You won't be relaxed. You won't be someone who can be calm and understand things from a different perspective. You're going to be amped up all the time. Okay, so that's kind of a way we can view this, is if we're always holding a knife in our hand, no matter what the situation is, that knife that we're always holding in our hand, it might be useful 1% of the time in our day. The rest of the time, it's threatening as hell. We don't want to have that, you know. That's not a situation we want to be in. So, does that make sense, Venus Rising? Please feel free to talk about this if you have another question or something to say or an insight. Please feel free to let me know, because we can definitely talk about all this. Yes. I don't know if I made that clear. Yeah, that would be the reverse meaning of this. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. The reverse meaning would absolutely be that. Yeah, the intense mental energy would be, yeah, it would be in reverse. Sure, Venus rising, go for it. Yeah, let me know what you saw, and then we can talk about it. This is a kind of a non-traditional tarot deck, but symbols, symbols are kind of universal, but please tell me what you saw, and we can talk about that. Put this one back in here. One sword in his hand, parallel with his body. That's a pretty common one. It can be a man or a woman laying down in the swords, like what you're saying. The message that came to me very strongly was that those three swords pointing up into the sky was that man has the potential to commune and be in direct communication with God slash the universe. Absolutely, absolutely, because the swords represent the, yeah, absolutely. They're piercing the sky. There can be communication from that kind of perspective. But but the person has to be rested. We can all be connected to source, but if we're not well rested or we're not feeling like we can be calm and communicate or anything like that, then we're not going to be able to get the message. We're not going to be able to understand the message. Communications, swords, and apps, and mental energy is swords as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, when they're in repose, they're in theta waves. So if that's what you're feeling, I would say go with that. Go with that feeling. Um, because each person is going to understand and interpret the cards differently, and it's not wrong. It's not wrong at all that you interpret the card that way. If that's what you feel, that can actually be a really good way to read that card for you in the future. That can be something that's specific to that. Absolutely, absolutely. Venus rising, because when we're calm and we're rested, that's when inspiration can strike us the best. Is when we're calm. When we're super super stressed out and anxious, we can't get that inspired feeling. We can't be creative. We can't do anything. It's kind of like we're paralyzed by something. But that inspiration feeling, that's kind of the source or the God energy that you're talking about. That's what happens when we're calm and we're relaxed. We get that inspiration. So that's a really good find. That's a really good way for you to view that. I think that's really cool. Not that you need me to say that for you to feel validated, but just letting you know. I think that's cool. Good way to read the cards. Right, as I say, I just got this message for the first time after years of seeing this card over and over again. I love it. You got a message. You listen to that. listen to those messages, and obviously you are, so that's good. Well, you're very welcome, Venus Rising. I think it's important for us to talk about the cards, and you just found for the Four of Swords, you found a very unique interpretation, something that you came up with. It's very much related to what the card is, but it's very specific, and it's very kind of something that you found. And I feel like that holds truth. I feel like that absolutely has truth and value. So I like that. I like that a lot. When we're relaxed, all things can come to us, right? It's kind of like this. If you imagine this kind of scenario here, if my hand is relaxed, okay, I can put things inside of it, right? And I can hold things. I can touch things, right? But on the other hand, if my hand is like this, I can't hold anything. I can't hold anything because my fist is closed. And instead of touching something, it's kind of like I'd be either pounding something or I'd be punching something, okay? There's not a lot of gentleness with this. When we're open, we can communicate. We can be open. We can be open to source. But when we're closed off like this, we just become a fist. We become kind of reptilian-minded. And we focus only on survival, when instead we could focus on having fun, being in the moment, letting things come to us, instead of feeling like life is a huge struggle or something to be stressed about all the time. Okay. So, hopefully, it's not that I will never use the other meanings in readings, but I will know that this card has another meaning and dimension to connect with it. And it is time to do that, / in the right moment. Yes, absolutely. And that's a good thing to say too, is that the cards are multi-dimensional, and depending on the reading, depending on what it looks like to another card, or in your situation where you kind of had a psychic moment or you had a message, you had something come up, I feel like that's, you know when to do it. You know when to kind of tap into that other information. But that's what makes a good tarot reader or a good person with symbols. Like if we can understand the symbols, the tarot, we can get much more of a dimensional reading and understand the cards in a more 3D or more faceted kind of way, because there's several facets to each one of these cards. Absolutely, yeah. So it's definitely something that even if we spent a lifetime, yes, absolutely. Sometimes the cards kind of shapeshift for me, and that's the cool part about these cards, is that I've never given anyone the exact same reading, not even close. It's always been different, right? And each of these cards, depending on how they read, depending on what's going on here, each of them has a very different reading. In fact, depending on the person I was reading, even if I did get the same cards right next to each other, they could mean very different things for the people because of how they perceive things in their life, because of their perception. Maybe their biases or their cognitive biases on how they are in life, that can absolutely change how a person receives or responds to a reading that has been given to them. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And I've sometimes given a person a reading. I've been talking to you just like this. I've given a person a reading, and from the reading, they understood something completely different. It still made sense to them, but that was something that they took away from it that was uniquely their own, right? And that's not wrong. That's not wrong. If that's what they feel like helped them and they need to hear it and it made sense to them, perfect. That's what we want. So yeah. Okay, so hopefully that makes, I mean, obviously it does make sense because we're talking here and you seem to be understanding it. I feel like you're understanding it very well. So this is something that we can talk about. This next card here, though, if you want. And you can tell me what you see, because this deck is very different. It's much more, it's kind of minimalistic, but it's also very interesting. So this card here, this is the Seven of Wands. Venus Rising, you tell me what you see, okay? Or anyone else that's watching this right now. If you guys want to chime in, tell me what you guys are seeing. There are no wrong answers. So please understand it's a symbolic interpretation, and just kind of feel with the cards. Okay. I want us to kind of go into an exercise here. And this exercise is going to be, I want you guys to think. Okay. To think or to know. In this exercise, I want you guys to feel like you're the most powerful psychic that's ever existed. Okay. You're not going to get anything wrong. Everything you say is correct. I want you guys to kind of take that exercise and focus on this. So remember, no wrong answers. So focus on what this means to you. And if I can get the card to actually show here. So I'll describe the card because it's hard to see some of the details. So we have a hand that's poking up out of here. It looks like a hand, a branch, and then it's holding a gold, or it's not holding it, but there's a gold thing in the palm of this kind of branchy hand. And then behind this, there's tree branches that are kind of broken around it. But this one has gold right there, and then there's this light down at the bottom here that's shining from this gold. So this gold is kind of the central point of this card. Okay, if I can show you a little bit closer. The camera's having a hard time focusing, so I'm trying to... But that's kind of what we're talking about. And if you look up True Black Tarot, if you guys want to, you can look up True Black Tarot and then type in Seven of Wands, and this should be the card that comes up, and then you guys can take a closer look at it. Okay. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to see in the background, right? It's kind of hard to see, but they could absolutely look like spindly fingers or hands, right? And trees have that. The branches almost seem like they're reaching for the wind before they blow, right? That's kind of something that we can look at the trees. They sway, they reach for something, but at the same time, they're effortless in the way that they do something, right? So this one here, this card, the Seven of Wands, okay? Hold on one second. Hold on. Okay, so the Seven of Wands in this instance here means it's kind of like a card where we can be... Let me find this here. So this card here it can be a card. Posturing is a good way to put it. Yeah, I like posturing. I like that a lot. So let's kind of put that into this reading here. So we can have posturing, almost to say stop. Yes, that's a good way to put it too. It's kind of like the hand is holding on to this gold, and it's kind of in a position where you feel like if you ran up to it and tried to take that gold from the hand, it would stop you. And the hand even has kind of a thing of like it's getting ready to grab onto something, or like you said, to stop something. Whenever we hold something, the way this hand is talking about, or the way this hand is showing that it's open, but it's getting ready to close, whenever we do that, we're saying it's ours and we're possessing it. Posturing is a good word for it, but it could also be that we're being defensive. Or it could be that we're being someone who could be maybe aggressive, or someone around us is also being aggressive. Okay, so now another one here. So you said stop, almost to say stop, and then posturing. Kind of if we combine stopping and posturing in a certain way, we get control, right? So this card is about maintaining control, possibly in a way that could be, maybe it's underhanded, like literally, the gold is under the hand. It could be underhanded. There could be a pun there, right? There could be something along those ways. But more than likely, when I see this kind of card, it can be that things just feel like they're not flowing for us. I have the gold, I have the right way. That's good too. That's good. I have the gold, I have the right way. Okay, if you guys don't have the gold here, then you guys don't have the right way. So there can be arrogance here, right? There can be kind of like with the Six of Wands, there can be some pride, but it can be posturing too. I did like posturing. I thought that was really good. So let's talk about, so if this card upright is maintaining control, being defensive, and possibly as a positive meaning, perseverance. Okay, if you want to look at this card as perseverance, you can see it that way too. You can see it as a positive card, right? And again, I'm using positive and negative not to describe good or bad, but just to describe aspects that we would consider to be things that are favorable or unfavorable. Not good or bad, necessarily. Okay, so Seven of Wands in reverse. Okay, so what would that look like? What would be the reverse of control or guarded boundaries? Okay, perfect. Control or guarded or boundaries. That's really good. The reverse can also mean this. So what's the opposite of control? The opposite of control is giving up, right? And then we have protecting that which is valuable. That can absolutely be another upright reading as well. Persevering, if you want to think of it like this, persevering is allowing us to chase after what we consider valuable. Right. So persevering would be to chase after what we consider valuable. So that's absolutely what this could mean upright. Reverse would be to ignore. Yes, reverse would be to ignore an opportunity. We could have that, absolutely, to ignore an opportunity. Now when we're talking about this, we can also have someone that could feel possibly that their self-esteem or their confidence is destroyed. If this card is reverse, we could have someone that feels like they are being mistreated, or that feels like it's just hard for them to do things. So we could almost look at this card in reverse, someone with low self-esteem, someone with low self-value, okay? If we look at the hand going down this way, it's going down this way and it's grabbing something. It's kind of like this person is reaching really far down into themselves, and maybe we could even have some self-sabotage. This person is kind of stopping themselves from growing. Out of control, yes, perfect, perfect. Now, out of control also can go with being overwhelmed. If something is out of control, oftentimes we feel overwhelmed. Otherwise, we wouldn't say it's out of control, right? When something is in control, we generally consider that to be good. When it's out of control, we get overwhelmed, we get stressed, we have anxiety, okay? So this card can definitely represent, in reverse, being out of control, feeling very, very overwhelmed or stressed, and feeling like our confidence and our self-esteem is just not there. It's just not there. It's just not, we're not able to do this, okay? So that's something that we can have here. Again, when it's in reverse, I believe all tarot cards do want to be read upright. So I feel personally that when we see a card in reverse, it desperately wants to correct itself. And the way that it's telling you how to correct itself is by saying, hey, look at this, address these issues, and then I can be upright again. Okay? It wants to bring something to your attention. It doesn't want to hurt you. It doesn't want to break you. It wants to bring something to your attention so you can be more well-rounded and better off in the long run. Because I do believe that sometimes life gives us sneak peeks into what's coming up next. And through these symbols, through these tarot cards, we can get to see what's up next for us. And we can see how we could handle these kinds of situations, sort of in a practice environment at first, or something that's lesser than at first. But maybe there will be a big kind of test or a big kind of experiment that we get to impart on, in the future. So that's something that we could be talking about as well. Okay. I'm glad you agree, Venus Rising. Okay, so let's talk about this card here. This one is a popular one. People like this card. People like this card if you have it in a relationship reading. People like this card if you have it in any kind of situation where we could have a positive outcome. Usually I'm saying positive here because people denote being quick moving or successful as being positive. Okay, again, I don't think that it's either good or bad. Okay, there's actually, to describe what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it being good or it being bad, I can give you guys a little story. Venus Rising or anyone else watching, would you want to hear a little story, a little aside that we could talk about here? Those Venus Rising, those are good. Those are good cards too. But it's not those ones, not yet. I'm going in kind of an order here. So we just did 6 of Wands and we did 7 of Wands. So the next card up is 8 of Wands. Okay. Okay, so you'd want to hear a story. Okay. So it goes like this. There is a farmer hold on. Let me do this here. I'm going to try to remember this. Oh, Denise says yes. Awesome. Okay. Okay. All right. So remember the concept, the yin and yang that we talk about, the duality concept. So let me do this. Let's do this here. Okay. So when we're talking about the duality concept, okay, we're talking about learning through comparison or learning through contrast. And when we're talking about learning through contrast, we have to understand that when we say good or bad, that doesn't mean that one is the right way and one is the wrong way. Okay? Humans label things as being good or bad or this or that because of the biases that we have. Okay? Nothing is either good or bad, but perception makes it so. All right, so let's go into this story, right? So let's talk about this, and I'm going to see if I can find the story. Let me see. Okay, so guys, story time. I think I found the right story. Okay, so this is the parable of the Chinese farmer. Okay, so listen to this. It's pretty fascinating, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So let's do some story time. All right. Got the other laptop here. Got some stickers on my laptop. I think it's appropriate for a guy to have a lot of stickers. All right. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate. They said, "We are sorry to hear that your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate." The farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back, bringing 7 wild horses with it. And in the evening, everybody came back and said, "Oh, isn't that lucky? What a great turn of events. You now have 8 horses." The farmer said again, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to break one of the horses, and while riding it, he was thrown off and broke his leg. The neighbors then said, "Oh dear, that's too bad." And the farmer responded, "Maybe." The next day, the conscription officers came around to conscript people into the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. Again, all the neighbors came around and said, "Isn't that great?" Again, he said, "Maybe." The whole process of nature is an integrated process of immense complexity, and it's really impossible to tell whether anything that happens in it is good or bad, because you never know what will be consequence of the misfortune, or you never know what will be consequences of good fortune. Okay? So that's something we need to take into account, is that haven't you guys ever had anything happen? It seemed like it was going to be bad. It seemed like it was going to be negative, and it turned out to either be okay or great. You know, sometimes things happen, and it can be a series of negative, what feels like negative events, and it leads to something so positive. And I find that to be incredible. I find that to be interesting. Labeling the experience as good or bad, I feel like we're missing the point. Labeling the experience as an experience, I think we're onto something. Okay? Because as soon as we label it as good or bad, that experience is always going to be good or bad. And whenever something is labeled, it can never outgrow that label. It can never be anything else other than good or bad. So that's why I want to talk about it like that. Awesome. Okay, so Denise, you like that story? Good. Good. I'm glad you like that story. It's really good. And this one, this was Alan Watts. You guys can look him up, retelling the parable of the Chinese farmer. I love this, and Alan Watts talks about all this kind of stuff, duality. He talks about the complexities of life. He talks about bringing like Zen Buddhism to the West. He's able to put this all out in plain language, and plus he has an awesome voice. You guys can look him up, and he's really quite something. Okay, so let's do this here. I'm going to move this over. So that I feel is always important for us to keep in mind. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if something is good or bad. And very nice story. Thank you, Venus Rising. I'm glad you guys appreciated that. Again, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Alan Watts, you spelled it right. Perfect. Look him up. He's awesome. He has tons of lectures. He's passed on. He's been gone for a little while, or for a while. And but he talks about some really awesome stuff. I mean, some stuff that'll just really open up your little mind grape to new possibilities. Okay. So, let's talk about the next card coming up here. So, what would be, we have the Seven of Wands, so we're going to be talking about the Eight of Wands, all right? When we're talking about the Eight of Wands, we are talking about, it's a similar card, kind of to the Star card, sort of. But it's about quick moving energy. The Eight of Wands is a very, very powerful card, almost up there with the Chariot, almost up there with Major Arcana because it's fast. It's a very fast moving kind of card. So don't underestimate when we see the Eight of Wands. It's a powerful card, okay? Now, when we're talking about the Eight of Wands, it's quick moving. It can be rapid action, okay? He's from my hippie generation. Awesome. Perfect. Perfect. So I feel like you'll really vibe with him. You've probably already heard about him many times, but he's really cool. So when I say fast moving, that could interpret one event. That could interpret maybe one thing happening and it's a fast moving event. But when I say rapid action, it could mean several things moving along at the same speed. So we could be looking at several things happening at once, or several things kind of in a kind of a combustible order. One, step one starts, step two starts after step one immediately, step three starts, step four. Like it keeps going through these kinds of things. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about rapid action. Okay, machine gun fire of events happening that are powerful events. Okay, and in a lot of spiritual context, especially if we've been through something similar to like a Tower card, or if we've been through something like the Death card, we could be experiencing a lot of rapid growth, right? Because we're learning new ways of perceiving things. And right when we're starting to learn something new, we learn a lot. Okay, we learn a lot about something very, very quickly. And yes, momentum, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So then we have, well, I mean, obviously we have decision making that could be fast too, because if something is moving along and it's fast. It's like the car salesman that's really trying to get you to get into that car to buy it like right away. We could be talking about that kind of situation. It's like, oh, we don't know how long this is going to be here. You got to get in here. You got to get in here. A lot of people are wanting to do this. So we could be pressured possibly into making quick decisions. Okay. So it's important to take our time and take a breath. If there is some decision making going on here, if events are happening and they're beyond our control, ride the wave. But if it comes to a point where we need to make decisions, take a breath, take a step back, and get off of the roller coaster that is the Eight of Wands. Okay, do not think you have to do everything super fast just because it's moving fast. Sometimes we need to take a breath, and maybe we need to take a day or half a day to figure something out. So realize that that's also an option. Most of the time, okay? If someone was, drowning or choking or something, don't think you can wait half a day or something. It's kind of like something where you get to decide how you handle these decisions. You get to decide how you handle this kind of way of thinking, or this kind of way of things happening. Okay. So, the reverse of fast moving would be slow movement. Okay, we're talking about molasses kind of slowness. We're talking about the trickle down of a very, very slow moving kind of thing. A snail riding on top of a turtle that's on a rock. Okay, there's not a lot of movement going on there. There's a sloth somewhere in there that it's slow as hell. Okay, be careful of rapid fire kind of activity. Be not necessarily careful, but be alert, right? Don't or be slightly cautious. Like, we don't necessarily have to be careful, but we have to be open to the possibility that sometimes when things are moving so fast, We need to take a minute. There you go. Yes, yes. So the Eight of Wands in reverse is stagnant energy. Absolutely. So when we're talking about stagnant energy, when we're talking about this or stagnation, either way is good. I understand what you mean there. Either way is good. So we have slow down. Okay, we have stress. We have anxiety. When these cards are in reverse, especially this card, it's kind of like a bunch of energy. It's like we're kinking the hose, and then we want to get that upright so that the hose starts going again. But it's one of those kinds of things. Yes, watchful of, absolute. And so we have this here too. So we have panic, okay, and we can have waiting when it's in reverse. So we could have a situation where we are just kind of beside ourselves. You know, imagine a situation where maybe we go to the doctor and we're waiting on tests to come back. You know, something's up with us and we're waiting and we're waiting. That can be kind of an Eight of Wands situation. There's not a lot we can do, but we're sort of in that state where we're waiting and we're kind of panicking because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if something's going to change our lives forever, or we don't know if we're going to get a clean bill of health. So that's kind of the situation that can be the Eight of Wands in reverse, okay, if we're talking about that kind of energy. Okay, this could also be, it doesn't just have to be a doctor's visit. It could be that you're looking to get a house, things are moving smoothly, and then all of a sudden things kind of stop. Maybe another prospect was interested in buying the same house, and they offered a better price. We don't know that yet, but we're waiting to hear the news. We're waiting to hear the responses, so things feel like they've slowed down as a possibility. So that can be something as well. All right, so we have so that's the kind of situation that we can talk about there. So if it's in reverse, the way we make it upright is sometimes we don't get to control. Most of the time, the American people, okay, if you guys aren't from America, let me tune you in here. You guys probably already know this. But the American people are all about doing, right? And last I checked, we are human beings. We are being, right? We're not human doings. But for some reason, we feel like we have to accomplish so much, and there has to be all this kind of stuff. And a lot of times, the things that we're meant to accomplish take little to no effort to accomplish. But for some reason, we keep making the steps harder and harder and harder, and it's harder for us to let go, to let things come to us. So we need to relax, and we need to enjoy the process. We need to realize that life is meant to be lived, not a dreadful experience kind of a thing, right? So, all right, so let's move on to the Nine of Wands here. This one is where things get kind of interesting. And I'll show you why here. So the Nine of Wands is, well, hold on, got some itchy eyes. Let me grab these other cards here, just so I have the rest of them in order. So hold on one second. Okay, one more second. I just have to organize these. Let's do this one. Let's do this one. That one. That one. That. Okay, perfect. All right, now I got the rest of them in order. All right. Let's see what Venus Rising says. So does it involve communication? Lots of readers say that this card upright, as it relates to relationships, means that there are communication that will come from a romantic connection. Absolutely. Absolutely, it can mean. So it's kind of like if you want to think of any situation where, because the Eight of Wands is usually a card where things are happening, if it's not in reverse, it's usually a card where things are happening that we're wanting to happen. So if it's in a relationship reading, it could mean communication. It could mean someone coming by for a visit, maybe unannounced, possibly. It could mean someone just coming back into our lives. Absolutely, in a relationship, it could mean that. In a financial reading, it could mean that money's coming in quick. In so many different kinds. In a spiritual reading, it could mean maybe that our gifts, our psychic gifts, are starting to develop faster. Maybe we're starting to understand that world a little bit more. So whatever the reading is, the context of the card is generally, and again, you can have your own interpretation, but the context of the Eight of Wands is fast-moving energy. So in a romantic reading, that would mean, that could mean maybe someone comes in your life, they're very quick, that's kind of that kind of scenario where we let them in our lives and maybe, good things happen, but it could be a very, very quick kind of energy, something coming in our lives. Okay, so now we have this one. We have the Nine of Wands right here, okay? And if you look at the Nine of Wands, it's a wolf. There's blood on the stomach, kind of under the stomach, on its legs. We can't tell. I mean, I would assume that the blood is the wolf's blood because the way it's hunched and it's looking over at something. And in the distance, you guys can't see this, but around the wolf, there's arrows. These right here, these little things sticking out, those are arrows. And let me see here. Right, so wands is action, right? Swords is communication, or swords can be mental. Swords can be mental energy. So when we're talking about it really depends on what the card is next to. If we're talking about wands being used as more of a communication versus action, right? Because if we're talking about fast-moving communication, we have the Chariot and we have the wands, which would be something like that. But it depends on the context. So if someone, like, let's take this for instance. If someone said, will so-and-so come back to me? Let's take it as a romantic reading or as a relationship reading. Will so-and-so come back to me? I'm ready to be in a relationship with them again. Are they going to come back? And then we get the Eight of Wands, okay? Now, the Eight of Wands can mean the action of the person coming back, absolutely, and it could be a quick thing. But it could also be that maybe they're reaching out on social media. Maybe there's a communication that they're going to come through, and that could be a quick kind of thing. So it's not necessarily just geared towards action with the wands. Any of these cards, it's kind of like with letters in the alphabet. Any of these cards have exceptions and they have special rules, but you find that out as you move along. You find that out as you kind of go along, if that makes sense. So each card can kind of be enhanced or dehanced, in my opinion, depending on the card next to it. Sometimes the cards, like 3 or 4 different cards together, have a much, much, much different meaning than just the one card, if that makes sense. Hi, RS, how are you doing? You're very welcome, Venus Rising. It's something you get a feel for as you move along, as you try to open your mind to understanding it. It's just something you get a feeling for, and all of it takes time. And I'm still learning. Going to be learning till the day I die. Hopefully. Good. Thanks. How are you? I'm doing good. RS. Welcome to the channel, and we're just doing some tarot. Well, not readings. Well, yeah, I can do readings, but I do charge for the readings, and so this is just teaching. If you have a question that you're wondering about, I charge $10 for a question. If that's something you feel like you want to do, we can absolutely do that. But if not, you're free to stay and hear what I have to say on learning about the tarot cards, if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, we can absolutely do a reading if that's what you want to do. Okay, so, right. Looks like the wolf is very defensive after being attacked. Okay. So, that's a good way. That's absolutely right. So we have upright. So you said defensive, right? Okay. So you said defensive, Venus rising, and that makes sense. That makes absolute sense. But we could also look at it as being something that is kind of responding to the environment in the way that it wants to. So when an animal wants to survive in any kind of situation, they become very, very strong in that situation. There's a saying that says you don't want to corner an injured animal. I think it's something along those lines, because they can act in a way like they go nuts because they know that something's going to happen. They don't want to die. That's kind of the situation that we're talking about. So we can view this as kind of like the wolf's resiliency. Okay, we can view this as kind of like the wolf's indomitable spirit. Okay, and where the wolf is white as snow, kind of a thing, and we can see the blood. It's kind of hard to see it from here, but there's blood right here. Okay, and even though we don't see the injury, this wolf, if it was injured and hunters were chasing after it, the hunters could find the wolf pretty easily, right? Because of the blood that's dripping down. And so this wolf is kind of at its last stand. This wolf is kind of at its last leg of the journey, so to speak. And so it's reacting accordingly, right? Okay, that's what you see. Perfect, Venus rising. All right. So then, if we're looking at this card, it's kind of putting in that one last effort. It's trying to do that. So any of the 9 cards in the tarot want to be the 10. And the reason why I'm saying they want to be the 10 is because everything wants to have completion, and the tarot is no different. Everything wants to tell a story and get to the end so that the next story can start, okay? And so with the tarot, when we're at the 9, it's really wanting to get to that 10 so that it can be a 1 again. That's kind of the situation we're talking about here. The minor arcana are always wanting to shift through that kind of thing where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it starts over at 1 again. Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about. So the 9 of Wands is resiliency. It's the last stand. It's being able to handle something. But it could possibly be that it could be too much for us to handle. The 9 of Wands can be a card where we're experiencing something that's too much for us to handle, and maybe we're about to break, right? Maybe we're in that place where it's like it's hard for us to keep going because this is difficult. But we could have the strength that we need. We could have that wolf-like spirit, that indomitable animal-like spirit within us, and we just need to reach a little bit more. Okay, so let's look at this card in reverse. And so we have 9 of Wands in reverse. Okay, so if we're talking about resiliency and there being a last stand and there being this kind of indomitable spirit, I keep saying that, but if we're talking about that, what would be the reverse? What would be the reverse of that kind of energy or that kind of feeling? What do you guys feel like that would be the reverse? Because it's definitely a card. Well, we'll talk about this. I'm going to wait and see if anyone says anything. If not, here in about a little bit. Vulnerable. Okay, so vulnerable is good. Ugh. Vulnerable is good. It can also be, if we want to look at vulnerability as possibly looking at our motivations or questioning the reasons why we're doing things, that can be a way that we can be vulnerable. Okay, but it's being honest with ourselves. Why are we doing something the way we're doing it, or why are we doing something, period? Hi, Jyoti. Hopefully I said that right. You can. I do charge for my readings. If that's something you feel comfortable with, we can absolutely do that. It's $10 a question or $25 for 3 questions. So if that's something you feel like you want to do, we can absolutely do that. If not, though, you can just listen to me talk about the tarot here. But yeah. Okay. But vulnerability, Venus rising, absolutely. Vulnerability is a good way to describe it. Questioning ourselves is an act of being vulnerable. Allowing ourselves to question ourselves is an act of humbling ourselves and being vulnerable. So that's absolutely true. Now, we can also have something here where we could have, we could feel tired, right? Or we could feel very like it's just been difficult. It's just been a difficult process. Like I said, the 9 card is a card that can be a difficult card to go with. Even when it's upright, even when the 9 of Wands is upright, it can still be a pretty difficult card. Not necessarily negative, but definitely a card that's wanting to get to that 10 and then wanting to start over. It's wanting to get to the 1 again because things are easier when we start in the 1 space, like the ace of Wands, Cups, Swords, or Pentacles. Things are easier in the ace days. Right. Wounded is a good way. Yes, wounded is good too. When we're wounded, we need to rest. The body behaves very differently if we're sick or we're wounded. Okay? And a lot of animals, when they're wounded, they'll fast. They'll try to get their body to recover as soon as possible by putting in resources into different parts. And a lot of animals do that kind of thing. And so it's an interesting process. And all right, so we could also have wounded is good, fatigue, exhaustion, being tired, feeling like we're at our wits' end, those kinds of things. Those are good, good descriptors of the card for sure. So that's something that we can absolutely talk about here. But primarily, this card is kind of like we're burdening ourselves. Maybe we're taking on too much. Maybe we feel like we can do it all on our own, but there can be we feel like we can do it on our own, but maybe there's some resentment. You know, maybe we feel like it would be nice to have help, or we feel like we shouldn't even need to ask for help. Things should just sort of come to us, but we feel like we have to do this regardless. This card is showing a lone wolf, okay? And that to me is saying that, I mean, yeah, an exhaustion, perfect, Venus rising. That to me is saying that the wolf is, it doesn't have a pack, it's kind of doing its thing. And sometimes these wolves are exiled, right? They get in a pack fight. The younger, stronger, more dominant wolf wins, and then the losing male has to leave the pack. And so maybe it could be something where we're looking at how we can fit into a new situation as well. It can be understanding situational awareness or understanding how we fit into society or how we fit into this kind of way that the world works as well. But again, frustration, feeling tired, feeling exhausted when it's in reverse, taking a last stand, being resilient. Kind of, if you want to view it as this card upright is kind of like courageous. It's kind of like, if you want to think of it as like a courageous death, right? That is how I would describe this card. I've heard the 9 Wands upright called the Wounded Warrior, and the reversed is exhaustion. Yeah, that works too. Absolutely. Absolutely, that works. Okay. Let's move on to the 10 of Wands here, and I'll show you guys this card. Okay, 10 of Wands. Interesting looking card right there. We have 2 beetles. One little beetle on the bottom, a little beetle on the top. It sounds like the archetype of Chiron in astrology. I don't know a ton about that, but if that's what it sounds like, then that's cool. That's awesome. A lot of this, we're talking about archetypes. We're talking about different ways that we can read these symbols, or these symbolic cards, these subconscious communication tools. Okay. And I will say this, you guys, if you wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe if that's something you can do. And if you guys like this kind of content that I'm putting out, please donate a little bit. I can put the donation thing here. Any amount would be good. It just helps me to know that you guys like this kind of content. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to be doing these as much. Just because, I want to make enough money to do this kind of stuff, and I understand that sometimes people don't have money. I still want you guys to watch this. I want you guys to enjoy this, interact with the community. But if you guys feel like you can put a little bit forward for me in the channel to say, hey, we like this content, I would appreciate that immensely. Okay. So let's do this one here. We have the 10 of wands. Okay. And I showed you this before, but we have the beetle here. And then another beetle on top. And we have a bunch of sticks, kind of like the sticks are holding up the whole structure, but also the beetle looks like it's holding up the structure too. The beetle is being part of the instrumental force that's holding this up. The beetle is a very, very strong kind of animal or insect. And oh, it's fine. What I'm trying to say is right now I'm not doing readings. I'm not going to be doing, I'll do readings if people come on and they want readings, but tonight is just me doing teaching, right? And so if people want to pay to hear me teach, then I'm fine with that. In fact, I'm more than fine with it. But I would honestly like to do readings and teachings, kind of show you guys what it looks like, the practical side of doing a reading in front of you guys so you can see what that looks like. But you know, it is what it is. If we make some money doing this, great. But tonight we haven't really been making that much, so that's why I was putting it out there. It just lets me know if you guys like the content. Okay, so hold on one second here. Okay, so we have the 10 of wands structure, okay? And we can have someone that feels like they're bound to hold up a structure. I feel like these are Atlas beetles. I could be wrong, but Atlas held the world up above his shoulders. That was kind of his thing. He had to hold the world up above his shoulders, and that can be an immense burden, okay? Where the 9 of wands is our last stand, the 10 is getting ready to lay it down. The 10 is getting ready to lay down the burden. The 10 is getting ready to start over for the 1. So maybe we've reached a stage of completion or mastery. We could be feeling tired, exhausted, different kinds of feelings, but it's like getting ready to put down the burden, getting ready to make things go in a better direction for us, okay? But like I said, so burden is a good way we can describe this card. But in this card here, these are beetles, okay? As far as I know, I don't feel like beetles burden themselves as much as we do with other things. If a beetle needs to move or knock something over, it kind of does it. It's just like, you know what, whatever, I'm just going to do this, and it goes for it. But if we're looking at this, we could have accomplishment, responsibility, but we can also have burden, and that's the upright of this card. If we're talking about accomplishment, responsibility, and burden, those go hand in hand, depending on the intentions or the connotation, I guess, that we're looking at this kind of thing. We can be responsible, but we can also feel burdened by that responsibility. Someone can see us as doing something in the right way, but we could also feel like, man, this is hard for me to do, but I'm going to keep going anyway. Okay, so it can be that kind of situation where we could be being congratulated for how well we're doing, but deep down, it's hard for us to do this kind of thing. So it can be a burden. It can be hard for us to do these kinds of things. But we can feel accomplishment. We can feel a sense of accomplishment from this, or feeling like we're a responsible person, okay? Now, if we're looking at this card in reverse, all right? We have beetles upside down, and they are going to fall down, or they're going to do something here. But this card in reverse is actually, it can be a good card, but it also, some of these cards, when we read them in reverse, can absolutely be kind of like negative, or even more so negative, like when we turn it in reverse. So again, stress, burnout, and possibly feeling like we could have a hard time. Like, let's say someone wants to help us. Let's say someone wants to help us with something we're doing. We're feeling burdened, we're feeling stressed, and they say, okay, what can I do to help? And then we're like, you know, we're so fried. We're just like, you know, and then you can't even think of ways that they could help you. because you're stressed, because you're feeling overwhelmed. And so we could have something where it's hard for us to give tasks to other people to help us. It literally could be something that makes us even more anxious, the thought of giving tasks to someone else to accomplish, because we're already focused so much on what we're doing. So it's definitely a card that wants to resolve itself as soon as possible. And humans don't like to experience the Ten of Wands. I can tell you that right now, because even if it's upright, even if it's in reverse, like, it's difficult either way for the most part. Again, depending on the context of the readings you could be giving to someone else, the card can have a different connotation. But in this kind of situation, generally speaking, this card is going to be something that we are feeling strongly tired. We are feeling like we're ready to say, you know what, I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm tired. I can't do this. It's just getting ready to kind of stop. Okay, and then we start over again at the Ace of Wands. So that, I feel, basically describes the concepts that we're talking about here. So, you guys have any questions? If you guys do want to do a reading, right now is going to be the time, because here in about 5 minutes, I think I'm going to call it good. If you guys want to do a reading, I'll stay on. Again, $10 for a question, if you guys feel like you can do that. And if you guys feel like you can donate, my PayPal link and my Cash App are right here. I would appreciate any donations. So just throwing that one out there. Okay, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. I think that's really fun to do these kinds of readings. And we can talk about the other cards maybe next week. Maybe. I don't know if this is going to be that popular. Just because tonight was a very slow night. So I might not do these teachings as much. So we'll just kind of see. I want to get people interested. I want people to come on here. And I'm getting some people interested, but again, it's kind of like I need this to be my living. So I think I'll just do readings again on Wednesday and on Friday and not be doing the teachings. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll go from there. If you guys really like this, let me know by subscribing. If you can't donate, please let me know by subscribing or liking the video. That would help me a lot too. And yeah, so any questions on the cards or any questions like that? Ooh. If not, that's okay too. But yeah, and you guys can absolutely, if you don't want to do a reading this way, you can check out my website. We can book a reading that way. We can also do energy healing. So if you guys have questions, awesome, Venus Rising, thank you so much. But if you guys have questions or things you're wondering about, you can do a private reading with me. Okay, I establish a safe space. We can talk about whatever's going on, and then work on solutions together, trying to find something, see what the cards have to say, and just kind of communicate to each other. So if that's something you guys would want to do, we can absolutely do that. Awesome. Thank you so much. Venus Rising, I appreciate you because you came in, you were talking, you were communicating with me about what was going on, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you, okay? And thank you so much. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to call it good for the night. Everybody take care. And if you need to look back, I'm going to upload this. I mean, this is going to upload pretty quickly. So we start with the Ace of Wands and we go to the Ten of Wands. There's some stuff going on a little bit in between, but primarily it's just that. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. And I will see you guys either Wednesday or Friday. And we're looking at, you're very welcome, Venus Rising. And we're looking at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for when I start doing this. Sometimes I'm like 8:05. I try to get here at 8, but if I'm a little bit late, please forgive me, guys. And I will catch you guys next time. Toodaloo, take care, and thanks again for watching, guys.